Welcome everybody to another episode of The Evolving Activist. And at the time of recording, this is January 1st, 2021, a new year. We've bid farewell to a year that a lot of people are glad to see the end of, the backside of. And in this moment, this pause, as we move forward, there's a hope that things will be different this year. A hope that we can live into something else this year. And for some people, that's going to be magical thinking, right? For some people, that is going to be the new year, everything resets, everything's automatically fresh and new. For the rest of us, though, it means the new year is going to bring more of the same. And we can still mark it as an opportunity to create something new and different. So I posted on my Facebook page yesterday, as part of my Happy New Year, a quote by Pema Chodron that says, "All you need to know is that the future is wide open and you are about to create it by what you do." All you need to know is that the future is wide open and you are about to create it by what you do, And so as we move into creating that new future, that future that is more fair and just, that future that is more kind and compassionate, that future that is more connected, it's down to us and what we do, which means that every single one of us shows up as a leader. This year, we all get to show up as a leader. We all get to create the future by what we do, by taking leadership, by taking the lead. And so this year, what I thought I would do on the podcast is really look at what does it take to be that leader that we've all been waiting for? Because make no mistake, you are the leader you've been waiting for. And everything that you do has a ripple effect. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. There have been plenty of studies that correlate emotional intelligence with good leadership. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because a lot of the reading I've been doing lately, a lot of the work that I've been doing has come back to, one, it starts with me. Two, it starts with me finding that place of emotional intelligence and leading from that place. So Marshall Goldsmith is a researcher who kind of works with emotional intelligence, and the three core capacities that I'm going to focus on this year for my emotional intelligence are self-reflection. And for me, that means mindfulness and awareness as well. Self-awareness, awareness of my actions, mindfulness, the ability to notice and name my experiences, to know what emotion it is that I'm feeling, to know what my body's telling me, to be very aware of when I'm regulated or dysregulated, because that's going to make an impact on how I show up in the world. The other dimension is empathy or compassion, or empathy and compassion, right? Empathy being the capacity to feel connected to another person's experience without taking away their reality, right? So it's the ability to conceptually walk a mile in someone else's shoes. But then compassion is the walking alongside them, the struggle with, right? To take the action. I can have empathy, but without compassion, I'm not necessarily taking action. And then the third dimension is self-regulation, right? The capacity to feel distress or pain, know that they're natural, acknowledge them, validate them, but then also to work with them in a way that helps me reestablish my equilibrium without having a detrimental effect on others around me. And a lot of the reading I've been doing around social justice and, for example, racial equity and stuff like that comes back to, I need to regulate my nervous system. Every one of us, that one act of leadership can make a huge difference. Because when people are around you and they're panicked and they're anxious and they're angry and they're dysregulated in all sorts of ways, if you can find your way back to that center, if you can find your way back to that balance, you can help them calm their nervous systems down too. And that's a huge gift. It's a huge gift. So for probably the next year, I'm going to have this thread of emotional intelligence and personal leadership in all of my episodes. You can't lead change without being a leader. You can't make change in the world without stepping into your personal leadership. And to be an effective leader, you need to be able to step into that pause between stimulus and response. You need to be able to step into that empathy and that compassion. So we're going to talk a little bit about those things. I'm going to ask you to sometimes step back from doing, step back from taking action into listening, into being, into what is called compassionate witnessing. This is something that I think is very important for all of our changes. And I'm going to read you a little bit from a book called Powerarchy by Melanie Joy. She says here, compassionate witnessing, a term coined by psychology Kathy Weingarten, entails paying attention and listening with empathy and compassion and without judgment. When we compassionately witness another, our goal is not to be right, to win an argument, or even to fix a problem. It's simply to understand the truth of the other's experience. Compassionate witnessing is simply to understand the truth of the other's experience. That's powerful. That's powerful. When we compassionately witness another, she says, we're saying, I see you, I empathize, and I care. Right? Of course, as she says again, it doesn't guarantee an ideal outcome to a situation, but it is a necessary step in reconciliation and healing. And I think that's a really big part of being a change maker in the world, is to facilitate reconciliation and healing, right? To be truly seen, says Melanie Joy, is a great gift, one that is sorely lacking in most of our lives and in the culture at large. It's especially lacking among those who have less power in powerarchies, right? So our system, a powerarchy is basically a system that exerts power over, right? It's a system built on oppression and exploitation. So it's a big thing. And in this book, Powerarchy, she talks about moving away from power over to power with, right? And she says compassionate experience, compassionate witnessing is such a gift, right? Because most people who have been in a position lacking power in a powerarchy, right? Their experiences have been underrepresented, misrepresented, and thus rendered less visible or invisible. I want you to stop for a minute and think back to the last time you felt truly seen, truly heard. How did that feel? I bet that felt great. They say that listening is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. Compassionate witnessing is the same. We cannot compassionately witness if we're not in a place of equilibrium, though. I think we get ourselves, if we're out of we're dysregulated, we can fall into old patterns of interacting with somebody, right? Giving them advice, trying to save them or rescue them, invalidating their reality by telling them what yours is, centering yourself, those sorts of things. She says here, compassionate witnessing is a central practice of power with. We feel validated when we feel accepted for who we are, and when we don't feel judged for what we think and feel. And when we feel validated, we feel unashamed and worthy. We feel that we matter. Compassionate witnessing is therefore the antidote to shame. Oh, when we're met with compassion and empathy, we are empowered. Let's go back to some of these pillars of emotional intelligence, though. Self-reflection and awareness, right? Empathy and compassion, self-regulation. In the book, she talks about nonviolent communication. And, you know, I've learned about nonviolent communication. I've used it. And I also still find myself falling into violent communication patterns, especially with myself, especially internally. And that's a conundrum, because how am I supposed to embody nonviolence and justice and fairness and equity and love in the world if I am being violent to myself? So when I look at this idea of compassionate witnessing, it can start with me, right? It's a form of self-compassion. Melanie Joy says here, when we compassionately witness ourselves, we deepen our connection with ourselves and we increase our integrity and decrease our shame. When we practice compassionate witnessing toward others, we empathize with those who are suffering and help create a more just and compassionate world. Indeed, this is such an important quote. Indeed, virtually every atrocity is made possible by a populace that turns away from a reality they feel is too painful to face. And virtually every social transformation is made possible because a group of people chooses to bear witness and encourages others to bear witness as well. Social transformation requires that we shift from a culture of oppression to a culture of compassionate witnessing. Compassionate witnessing can also help us develop healthy psychological boundaries, which are essential for healthy interpersonal dynamics in relationships. So how do I start with this? How do I start this compassionate witnessing, right? How do I start to build my EQ, my emotional intelligence, so that I can step into my personal leadership, so that I can be a better leader in my movement, in my family, in my community, in my life? Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on just one practice, just one, and that is being present. Practice being present right now, right here. Practice being present with no judgment, right? Stop. Here's my homework for you, right? For the next day or so. Just stop every now and then, preferably several times. Just stop and notice the world around you. Notice your thoughts, notice your desires, notice your sensations in your body, in your heart, in your mind. Just pay attention. I'm not going to ask you to change anything. I'm not going to ask you to take action differently. Simply notice. Simply be aware. Right? How does my body feel? What's around me? What do I see? What do I hear? What can I smell or taste? There's no coincidence, by the way, that a very effective practice for helping deal with anxiety is to start with, okay, what are 5 things I can see? Name 5 things I can see. Name 4 things that I can hear. Name 3 things that I can smell, touch, taste, right? You basically go down, help get into the present moment. Be aware of yourself and your environment. There's no coincidence that when you're in a state of high anxiety, doing something like that can get you grounded, can help you release that anxiety. It's step 1, right? Self-awareness, practice being present, stop, notice, right? Is everything colorful and bright? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it gray? What are the colors you notice most? Do you feel the sensation of the air around you? Is there a breeze? Is there a scent wafting? What can you taste in your mouth? Right? What's touching my body? These clothes that I'm wearing a yummy warm sweater right now. How does it feel against my skin? Is it soft? Is it scratchy? Do I notice where the sweater stops and my exposed skin begins? So all I'm going to have you do today is just notice, pay attention. For the next 24 hours, stop every now and then and just be present. Just notice. No judgment. No editorializing. Just notice. It's the first step. It gets easier. It gets easier the more you do it, right? Some people have a very specific practice of stopping and becoming mindful of their environment and themselves, checking in with themselves, checking in with the environment, coming back to themselves, going back to the environment. Other people simply just take a second, stop and scan, right? It may be that something triggers that, right? You hear a certain sound or you see something that just stops you in your tracks. Whatever, however it works for you, for the next day, just stop every now and then and be present. And I'd love to hear with you. I'd love to hear from you. What shifts? What did you notice? I noticed when I first started doing this, I noticed that sometimes I have these like blank spots in my day. And I'm like, I can't even remember what I was just doing, right? I was disembodied. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't present. The more I do this, the more grounded and present I get. So I'd like you to practice this for 24 hours. Practice becoming present, practice coming into yourself, and share with me in the comments how this experience was for you, because I'd love to hear it. So as we move into 2021 and we move into our leadership, our personal leadership, our thought leadership, our leadership in the community and with ourselves, let's work on our emotional intelligence. Let's work on our compassionate witnessing, starting with ourselves. Let's just notice our reality for now. And let's move forward through this year together, building and becoming beautiful epicenters of compassionate ripples out into the universe. I wish you a happy, safe, peaceful new year, wherever you are in the world. I look forward to this year. I look forward to us moving forward and making positive change. And with that, take care. I'll catch you on the flip side.